The spotlight hits him, and something is wrong. Dean Martin stands at the microphone in the Copacabana room at the Desert Inn, Las Vegas, December 1967. The audience is still laughing from the previous bit. The orchestra is waiting for his cue, but Dean isn't moving. He's staring at a table in the back corner of the room, half hidden in shadow, where 4 men in dark suits sit perfectly still. They aren't laughing. One of them, the one in the center, older, gray hair, no expression, slowly shakes his head, just once, left to right. Dean's hand tightens around the microphone. The laughter in the room is fading now. People are starting to notice the pause. The band leader glances over, confused. Dean's pianist leans forward slightly, trying to catch his eye. Dean looks down at his notes, then back at the table. Then he folds the paper and puts it in his pocket. "That's all for tonight, folks," he says into the microphone. His voice is steady, calm. "Thank you for coming." He walks off stage. The applause is confused, scattered. The show was supposed to run another 20 minutes. Backstage, his manager is already waiting, pale and sweating. What the hell was that? Dean doesn't answer. He walks past him, down the corridor, toward his dressing room. Behind him he can hear footsteps, not running, just walking, steady and deliberate. Coming closer. To understand what just happened, you have to go back 3 weeks. Dean is in Los Angeles having lunch with a writer named Hal Cantor. They're working on material for Dean's upcoming Vegas residency, the usual mix of songs, stories, self-deprecating humor about drinking and women, and the absurdity of fame. Hal slides a piece of paper across the table. "I've got something new," he says. "I think it'll kill." Dean reads it. It's a joke. A story, really, about a casino owner who gets audited by the IRS and tries to explain where all his money comes from. The punchline involves the owner claiming his profits come from extremely generous tippers. Dean reads it twice. Then he looks up. "Where'd you get this?" "I wrote it." "Based on what?" Hal shrugs. "Based on how things work here. You know, everyone knows." Dean sets the paper down carefully. "Everyone knows what?" "Come on, Dean, we're not idiots. We know who really runs this town. We know the casinos are fronts. We know the money gets skimmed before it's counted. We know, do we?" Hal stops. "What? Do we know that? Or do we just repeat things we've heard?" "I'm not saying names. I'm just making a joke about people who don't like being joked about." Hal leans back. "So we just pretend none of it exists. We just play along." Dean looks at the paper again. The joke is funny, sharp, true, and dangerous. "Let me think about it," Dean says. He takes the paper with him when he leaves. That night, Dean sits in his den at home reading the joke over and over. His wife, Jean, comes in with coffee. "What's that?" "Material for Vegas." She glances at the paper. "What's it about?" "Nothing." "Dean." He hands it to her. She reads it. Her expression doesn't change, but something behind her eyes does. "You're not going to use this," she says. "I haven't decided." "There's nothing to decide. You can't. Why not?" She looks at him like he's being deliberately obtuse. "Because it's about them. It doesn't mention anyone by name. It doesn't have to." Dean takes the paper back. "It's just a joke." "Nothing is just a joke in Vegas." She leaves. Dean sits there alone, staring at the words. The joke is good, really good. The kind of joke that would bring the house down. The kind audiences would repeat to their friends. The kind that would show up in reviews. The kind that would get noticed. He tries it out once, privately. There's a small industry party in Beverly Hills, comedians and writers, people who understand the craft. Dean tells the joke after dinner casually, just to see how it plays. The room goes silent for a beat. Then someone laughs. Then everyone laughs, hard. But afterward, a producer pulls him aside. "That's a great bit." "Thanks." "Don't do it in Vegas." Dean looks at him. "Why not?" The producer glances around, making sure no one is listening. "Because the people who run Vegas don't have a sense of humor about being the punchline. It's a joke about casino owners. Could be anywhere." "Come on, Dean. We both know it's not about anywhere. We both know exactly who you're talking about." "I'm not talking about anyone. That's not how they'll see it. How will they see it?" The producer chooses his words carefully. "As disrespect, as you making fun of them in front of civilians, as you breaking the rule." "What rule?" "The rule everyone follows. You take their money, you play in their clubs, you use their stages, but you don't mock the hand that feeds you." Dean doesn't respond. "I'm serious," the producer says. "If you do that joke in Vegas, you're making a statement, and statements have consequences." Dean nods slowly. "Good to know." But he doesn't throw the joke away. 2 weeks before opening night, Dean gets a call. It's from a man named Eddie Torres. Eddie books the entertainment at the Desert Inn. Officially, he works for the hotel. Unofficially, everyone knows he answers to people who never appear on any employment records. "Dean, how's the new material coming?" "Good, solid." "Anything I should know about?" Dean hesitates. "Like what?" "Like anything that might be sensitive." There it is, the warning, delivered politely. "It's the usual stuff," Dean says. "Drinking jokes, marriage jokes, nothing controversial." "Good, that's good, that's good." Eddie's voice is friendly, but there's something underneath. "Because we want this residency to go smooth, you know. No surprises, no problems." "There won't be any problems." "I know there won't. You're a professional. You understand how things work." Dean understands exactly what's being said. The message isn't subtle, it's a reminder. Stay in your lane. Entertain. Don't get clever. "I'll see you opening night," Eddie says. He hangs up. Dean sits there holding the phone, thinking about the joke in his pocket. The joke he's been told not to tell, without anyone explicitly saying so. Opening night arrives. The Desert Inn is packed. High rollers, tourists, industry people, the kind of crowd that paid premium prices to see Dean Martin be Dean Martin smooth, funny, effortlessly cool. Backstage, Dean's manager goes over the set list one more time. Standard opening, 3 songs, then the monologue. Keep it light, keep it moving. 60 minutes total. Got it. His manager looks at him closely. "You okay?" "I'm fine. You seem distracted." "I'm always distracted." It's part of the charm. His manager doesn't laugh. "Dean, this is important. The Desert Inn wants to extend your contract. Another 6 months. Good money. But we need tonight to go perfect." "It will. Promise me you won't do anything stupid." Dean looks at him. "Have I ever?" His manager doesn't answer. He just walks away, looking worried. Dean stands alone in the wings, listening to the orchestra warming up, listening to the crowd buzzing with anticipation. In his jacket pocket is the folded piece of paper, the joke. He hasn't decided if he's going to use it. Not until he walks on stage. The first half of the show goes exactly as planned. Dean sings, "Ain't That a Kick in the Head?" The crowd loves it. He tells a few stories about Frank and Sammy, gets some big laughs. He does his drunk bit, the one where he pretends to be more intoxicated than he is, stumbling slightly, acting like he forgot the lyrics. The audience eats it up. But about 40 minutes in, Dean notices something. The table in the back corner. 4 men, dark suits. They're not laughing, not smiling, just watching. Dean recognizes one of them, Eddie Torres. The other 3 he doesn't know, but he understands who they are, what they represent. They're there to make sure he behaves. Dean finishes a song. The applause is huge. He steps back to the microphone for the next bit, a pre-planned routine about airport security. But instead of starting, he pauses. He looks at the table in the back. Eddie Torres is staring at him, no expression, just watching. Dean reaches into his pocket and pulls out the folded paper. His pianist sees this, leans forward, confused. This isn't in the set list. Dean unfolds the paper slowly, looks at the words, looks at the table, and makes a decision. "I heard a story the other day," Dean says into the microphone. The room quiets. People lean forward. "This is off script." Spontaneous. The thing everyone comes to see, Dean Martin being himself, unfiltered. "There's this casino owner," Dean continues. "Big place, real successful. But the IRS comes knocking. They want to know where all the money comes from." A few people in the audience chuckle, sensing where this is going. Dean glances at the back table. Eddie Torres is sitting perfectly still. Dean continues. "So the owner," he says, "what money? We barely break even." And the IRS agent says, "Really? Because we've been watching. Every night, thousands of people come through your doors. They gamble, they lose. The money goes somewhere. Where does it go?" More laughter now. The audience is engaged, and the owner thinks for a second. Then he says, Dean stops. He's looking at the back table again. One of the men, the older one, gray hair, dead eyes, slowly shakes his head, left to right, a warning. Dean looks down at the paper in his hand. The punchline is right there. One sentence. It would destroy. The audience would explode. The joke would be quoted in reviews, repeated in hotel bars, remembered as one of Dean's best. But the man in the back is still shaking his head. Dean folds the paper, puts it back in his pocket. "You know what?" Dean says into the microphone. "I forgot the punchline." The audience laughs, thinking it's part of the bit. "Happens when you get old," Dean says. "Memory goes." More laughter. But Dean isn't smiling. He looks at the back table one more time. Then he says, "That's all for tonight, folks. Thank you for coming," and walks off stage. His manager is already screaming before Dean reaches the dressing room. "What the fuck was that? You had 20 minutes left. The show wasn't over." Dean closes the door behind him. "It is now. You can't just walk off stage. I just did." "Dean, the hotel is going to—" There's a knock on the door, not aggressive, just 2 polite taps. Dean's manager goes pale. "Don't answer it," he whispers. Dean opens the door. It's Eddie Torres, alone, smiling. "Can we talk?" Eddie asks. "Sure." Eddie steps inside. Dean's manager tries to stay, but Eddie looks at him and says, "Privately?" The manager leaves. Eddie closes the door. For a long moment, neither man speaks. Eddie walks around the dressing room looking at the flowers, the telegrams, the framed photos on the wall. He's taking his time, making Dean wait. Finally, he turns around. "That was smart," Eddie says. "What was?" "Not telling the joke." Dean doesn't respond. "You were going to, weren't you? That's what the paper was. The joke about the casino owner and the IRS." "It was just material." Eddie smiles. "No, it wasn't just material. It was a message. You were going to get up there, in front of all those people, and make fun of the way things work here. Make fun of us." "I wasn't making fun of anyone." "Yes, you were, and you knew it. That's why you stopped." Dean sits down. "So what happens now?" Eddie considers this. "That depends." "On what?" "On whether you understand what you almost did." "I understand." "Do you?" Eddie steps closer. "Because I don't think you do. I think you think this is about a joke, about material, about artistic freedom or whatever bullshit you performers tell yourselves. It's not. No, it's about respect. It's about understanding that when you work in this town, you work for us. You might not see it that way. You might think you're independent, that you're just a singer doing shows. But you're not. You're our employee, and employees don't mock their bosses." Dean looks at him steadily. "I don't work for you." Eddie's smile disappears. "You work for whoever signs your checks," he says quietly. "And those checks come from our casinos, our hotels, our money. So yeah, Dean, you work for us." "No," Dean says. "I work for the audience." "The audience doesn't exist without us." "Maybe, but I don't exist without them." Eddie stares at him. "You're making a mistake." "Am I?" "You think walking off stage was some kind of victory, some kind of moral stand. It wasn't. It was you admitting you're scared." "I'm not scared." "Then why didn't you tell the joke?" Dean doesn't answer. Eddie leans against the dressing table. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to finish this residency. You're going to do exactly what you're paid to do. Sing, tell safe jokes, make people happy. And when it's over, you're going to sign the extension. 6 more months, and you're never going to pull this shit again." "And if I don't?" Eddie's expression doesn't change. "Then you don't work in Vegas anymore. Not at the Desert Inn, not at the Sands, not anywhere. You become poison. No one books you. No one returns your calls. You fade away. You'd really do that over a joke." "It's not about the joke, Dean. It's about you thinking you're above the system. It's about you thinking you can do whatever you want without consequences." Eddie stands up. "This is your warning. There won't be another one." He walks to the door, opens it, then stops. "One more thing," he says without turning around. "That writer who gave you the joke, Hal Cantor, he's not going to get any more work in this town either. Not in TV, not in film, not anywhere we have influence." Dean's jaw tightens. "He didn't do anything. He gave you the material. That's enough." Eddie looks back. "That's how this works. You don't just pay for your mistakes. Everyone around you pays too." He leaves. Dean sits alone in his dressing room, staring at the closed door. The next morning, Dean calls Hal Cantor. "They're coming after you," Dean says. "I know. I got 3 calls already. Projects canceled. Meetings postponed indefinitely. I'm sorry." Don't be. I knew what I was doing when I wrote that joke. You didn't think I'd actually use it. Hal laughs bitterly. No, I didn't. I thought you'd read it, laugh, and throw it away like everyone else does. I almost used it. I know. I heard. Hal pauses. Why didn't you? Dean looks at the folded paper on his desk. Because I wasn't ready to pay the price. For you or for me. Both. Hal is quiet for a moment. So what now? I don't know. Are you going to finish the residency? Dean doesn't answer. Dean, I'll call you back. He hangs up. That night, Dean doesn't show up for the second performance. His manager calls him, frantic. Where are you? Home. You're supposed to be on stage in 20 minutes. I'm not going. Dean, you can't just... This is a breach of contract. They'll sue you. They'll destroy you. Let them. What the fuck is happening? Yesterday you walked off stage early. Today you're not showing up at all. What are you doing? Dean looks out the window of his den. Los Angeles at dusk. The city glowing. I'm deciding who I work for, he says. He hangs up. 10 minutes later, his phone rings again. He doesn't answer. It rings for an hour straight. He unplugs it. The next day, the lawsuit arrives. The Desert Inn versus Dean Martin, breach of contract, failure to perform, damages sought, $500,000. The press covers it immediately. Dean Martin walks out on Vegas residency, Desert Inn Suez, Martin for $500,000. What happened to Dean? The articles speculate wildly. Personal problems, health issues, creative differences. No one mentions the real reason. No one talks about the joke that wasn't told. Dean's lawyer calls him. We need to settle this. No, Dean. They have a solid case. You signed a contract. You agreed to perform. You didn't perform. This is open and shut. Then we lose. You could lose everything. Your reputation, your career. Other hotels will see this and, I don't care. Yes, you do. No, Dean says quietly, I really don't. His lawyer is silent for a long time. What happened in that dressing room? Nothing. Dean, nothing happened. I just decided I'm done being told what I can and can't say. By who? By everyone. The fallout is immediate and brutal. Within a week, Dean's bookings start to evaporate. Not all of them, but the big ones. The Vegas residencies, the high-profile concerts, the network specials. His agent calls with the news, voice shaking. They're blacklisting you. Who? Everyone. Every major venue in Vegas. They're coordinating. I've never seen anything like this. Dean isn't surprised. What about outside Vegas?
Outside Vegas, you're fine.
For now. But Dean, Vegas is where the money is. Vegas is where the industry is. If you can't work there, then I work somewhere else. It's not that simple. It is that simple. His agent exhales slowly. Why are you doing this? Over a joke. Over one stupid joke that you didn't even tell. It wasn't about the joke. Then what was it about? Dean thinks about Eddie Torres standing in his dressing room. About the warning. About being told he was an employee. It was about them thinking they owned me, Dean says. So you'd rather be unemployed than owned? Yes. His agent doesn't call back. 3 months later, Dean settles the lawsuit. Not because he wants to, because his lawyers convince him that fighting it will cost more than settling. He pays the Desert Inn $300,000. The headline, Dean Martin settles, admits breach. Dean doesn't read the articles, doesn't respond to interview requests, doesn't explain. He just moves on. But something has changed. Word spreads through the industry, not publicly, not in the press, but among performers, managers, club owners. Dean Martin said no. He walked away from Vegas. He chose principle over profit. And he survived. Not unscathed, not without cost, but he survived. Other performers start asking questions, start pushing back on clauses in their contracts, start demanding creative control. The system doesn't collapse, but cracks appear, small ones, barely visible, but they're there. Dean books a residency at a small club in Lake Tahoe 6 months later. It's not Vegas. It's not the Desert Inn. It's a fraction of the money, a fraction of the prestige. But it's his. Opening night, he walks on stage and the crowd gives him a standing ovation before he sings a single note. They know what happened. They don't know the details, but they know enough. They know he walked away, they know he refused to compromise, and they respect him for it. Dean sings his usual set, the drinking jokes, the marriage jokes, the self-deprecating humor. At the end of the show, he pauses at the microphone. The audience is waiting, expecting something. Dean reaches into his pocket and pulls out a folded piece of paper. The same paper, the same joke. He unfolds it slowly, looks at it. Then he folds it again and puts it back in his pocket. Some jokes, he says into the microphone, are funnier when you don't tell them. The audience laughs. But Dean isn't joking. Years later, a young comedian asks Dean about the incident. "Is it true you got blacklisted from Vegas over a joke?" "Not blacklisted, just uninvited." "What was the joke?" Dean smiles. "Doesn't matter. Why not?" "Because the joke was never the point." "Then what was the point?" Dean considers this. "The point was deciding whether I was going to be a performer or a puppet. And you chose performer. I chose myself." The comedian thinks about this. Was it worth it? Dean doesn't hesitate. Yes, even though it cost you Vegas. Vegas didn't cost me anything. Vegas never belonged to me in the first place. So what did you lose? Dean looks at the young comedian. Nothing that mattered. The folded paper still exists. Dean kept it his entire life. Never told the joke, never shared it publicly, never explained why. After he died, his family found it in his desk drawer, yellowed and creased from being folded and unfolded so many times. They read it, and they understood. The joke was good, really good. The kind of joke that would have killed, but it would have killed more than just on stage. It would have killed the part of Dean that refused to be controlled, and that part was worth more than any laugh. The men in the back of the Copacabana room that night, the ones who shook their heads, who warned Dean without words, they're all gone now. The casinos have changed hands. The system has evolved. Vegas is corporate now, sanitized, safe. But the principle remains. There are always people who think they own you, who think because they pay you, they control you, who think your voice is theirs to command. Dean Martin proved they don't. Not with a speech, not with a manifesto, just by folding a piece of paper and walking away. In the end, what Dean lost was a Vegas residency. What he kept was himself. The calculus seems simple now, obvious, but in that moment, standing on stage, spotlight in his eyes, the joke in his pocket, 4 men watching from the shadows, it wasn't simple at all. It was the hardest choice he ever made, and the most important, because the joke he didn't tell became the statement he did make, not about casinos, not about corruption, not about Vegas, about dignity, about ownership. About the moment when you decide that no amount of money, no amount of fame, no amount of success is worth surrendering the part of you that decides what you say and what you don't. The spotlight fades. The audience goes home. The stage goes dark. But somewhere, in a desk drawer, a folded piece of paper waits, a joke that was never told, a punchline that never landed, a moment of silence that spoke louder than any words. And Dean Martin, backstage, walking away from the microphone, not running, not scared, just walking. Because he already made his choice, and he's going to live with it.